Hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City. I'm your host, Cortney Bloomer. Today's episode is brought to you by the Red Wagon Network, connecting businesses, individuals, and nonprofit organizations in Northern Nevada and here in Carson City. Our guest today is DeeDee Foremaster, who's the Executive Director of the Rural Center for Independent Living and the Dewdrop Inn. Welcome, DeeDee.
Thank you, Courtney.
Tell us a little bit about just a general overview about the Rural Center for Independent Living. How did you guys get started?
Well, we started way back in 1998, and I started as a resource center to help people with disabilities to be able to get connected up with services. And what happened is about 3 weeks into running our resource center, I realized that probably one of the biggest needs in Carson City was for a drop-in center for people with disabilities to work towards getting off the streets. And I hadn't really realized up until that point that about 70% of the people on the streets are people with disabilities that don't know how to access services. And so we opened the drop-in center, which is open from 9 to 3 every day. We do have a small room where you can come and kick back and relax, watch TV, and feel safe, because a lot of being out on the streets is often you don't have a safe place to rest. And our resource center is still totally and completely intact, so we usually do an intake if you want services, and we assist people in moving towards being able to access services, and we make referrals to services here in the area, and also allow people to be in a relaxed environment. Being out on the streets is extremely stressful with a lot of our folks, so sometimes they just come in for a cup of coffee and conversation, and sometimes it takes 1 cup of coffee and they want some help, and sometimes it takes 10 cups of coffee before they trust us to be able to assist them. So,
all right. So this center has been around for quite a while, and you guys are still going strong, providing a wide variety of, like you said, referrals and services. Just so the viewers who are not familiar with the center can kind of get a handle on what it is you do, what are a few services that you guys offer there?
We help with Social Security. We do ongoing services. So a lot of our folks have trouble with paperwork because you're so overwhelmed being out on the streets. So we help with food stamps paperwork, Social Security paperwork, questions about Social Security. We help people file for Social Security. We also help with energy assistance and getting all the paperwork together for energy assistance, food stamps, or any other resources that people may need. I also help with a lot with housing. So a lot of our folks have trouble trying to find housing and aren't quite sure how to go about it. And I may help with applications for housing, and I have several landlords that I work with in the area to be able to help people get into apartments. Right now it's very, very tough because there is only a 2% vacancy rate in Carson City, so there is not a lot of rentals. So it's very, very tough right now.
It is a hard time in the housing market right now to find places for people who are in need to live. What are some strategies that your organization has to help fill that gap for people who aren't able to find a place to go?
Well, it's getting more and more difficult every day because people don't really understand or know enough about things like rural housing, which assists people who are making the big amount of $733 a month. So they have to pay rent, utilities, food, and supply all their needs. So when you collect SSI, that's what you get per month. And having rural housing can change someone's entire life to the point where they can buy shampoo, toothpaste, things like that, that we don't even think about twice about going to the store and buying. But you can actually change someone's life by allowing them to be able to use their rural housing voucher with your rental. And actually, it's a wonderful program. It actually provides you with, if you are a landlord, with the ability to get rent for a 1 year stable period with rural housing. And they're a wonderful organization and do wonderful things for people who do not have housing.
All right. Now, a large portion of the folks that your organization helps are veterans. What do you see as unique in the veteran community?
We work really hard with our veterans. A lot of times, until you ask that question, are you a veteran, they really don't come across still with a lot of that information, especially our Vietnam vets. Often you won't even realize that they are a veteran. And the PTSD that they have suffered from that war often makes it difficult for them to get off the streets. But we have been very successful in helping them to get off the streets, to be able to get connected up with other services. And we kind of fill in the gaps in between the Veterans Resource Center and the Veterans Homeless Program, which do a terrific job in helping our veterans also to get off the streets. But in the beginning, we have to help them to get a bunch of paperwork together. And often when they're out on the streets, they lose things like DeeDee 214s, identification, birth certificates, things like that.
All right. So a special population that really can use a hand. Your organization runs a lot on volunteer labor. You need help from the community. If there are people watching who want to get involved, what could they do?
Just come by our office at 1895 East Long in Carson City. We're located kind of behind Napa Auto Supplies, so the street that runs in front of Napa. If you take that street and connect it with East Long, that's where we are. And we also need volunteers because we're an all-volunteer organization. None of us get paid. So we also have an organic garden next to our center that helps feed the community, and we encourage people who are in that location to come and pick vegetables and reap the benefits of our garden. So, and we also always need assistance with answering phones, organizing our pantry as well as our clothing that comes in. So we are always in need of help.
What about financial donations? Is there a place for those?
Yes. Our donations that come in actually go out to help people like our veterans who may be on the streets with a motel room, We also help with things like gas, birth certificates. We help with things that are important, very important, like bus passes. Often as our Vietnam vets are aging now, they often need bus passes. And our disabled population, people don't think about the fact that it's hard to get from one place to another. And so bus passes are a very, very important part. We also need help with paper supplies. Fish also provides hot food, a hot meal at the end of the day, which a lot of our folks utilize. And also the Bridge Church is wonderful about providing food out of their little food cart. They do a great job over there too.
All right, fantastic. DeeDee, thanks for coming today and sharing with us a little bit about the Rural Center for Independent Living and the Dewdrop Inn, located on Long Street. For anybody that wants to volunteer or help out, we'll get them in contact with you through the information on the television screen. So thank you so much for coming today.
And thank you for giving us the time to come and speak.
All right, and thanks to all of you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City, brought to you by the Red Wagon Network, connecting people and businesses in Northern Nevada. My name is Cortney Bloomer, and I'm your host. From all of us here at It's Your City, have a great week. We'll see you next time.